A war conducted from the ivory tower of the Ivy League looks like, check out the kinetic military operation taking place in Libya. Now, it took the president 31 days of hand-wringing to cobble together a UN resolution authorizing the use of force against Muammar Gaddafi. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't seem as if that resolution is worth the price of the paper it was printed on, because there is little agreement among the allied forces about who should lead this operation. Now, Britain said NATO, France wanted to take the reins itself, and Germany, they opposed both options. I guess that's the sort of international harmony that the Anointed One has been seeking. Now, meanwhile, the president can't even keep his own house in order. Administration officials from top to bottom have made contradicting statements about the goal of this mission. But, hey, maybe the international community can help us sort all of that out. And joining me now with reaction, Fox News contributor, syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles, welcome back to the program. Thank you for being with us.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, Sean.
All right, so your headline, well, at least I guess it's different headlines around the country. Obama and Libya, the professor's war. And what you claim is it was designed by an Ivy League professor.
Well, it has all the classic imprints of sort of what a liberal intellectual would think war ought to be about. And it's constructed in that way. If you look at, as you said, all the contradictions in explanations from the White House about rationale and objective, I think you can understand it if you think about it in this way, which is it's a triumph of structure over strategy. Obama is obsessed with making this look what he would call legitimate in the eyes of the world, although why we really care what the butchers of Tiananmen Square think about preventing a butchery in Benghazi, I don't know, but apparently it matters a lot to have the UN Security Council with the Russians and other autocrats on board. But what they're worried about, what the administration cares about, is to get all these authorizations, the African Union, the Arab League, Security Council. And now, once we're in the war, Obama is equally obsessed with the idea of relinquishing American command. He actually said on television last night in an interview that our exit strategy begins this week. What he means is I'm getting America into war, but I'm getting it out within a week. But what he means is we're getting out by relinquishing command. And that's the worst possible way to do it. You want a unity of command, and it ought to come from the leading power. That's us. Up until now, that's how the operation is run. And on the ground, it's been effective. Right now, the idea is to shift it over to NATO. 28 countries, has to go by consensus, which means any one of the members can have a veto and run a war in that way. It can't be done. It's a terrible way to do it.
You know, I want to go back to this idea that you're talking about, that he wants to relinquish command, get out of there as quickly as possible. But there's another aspect to this. He doesn't seem to care about winning, which is the only explanation I can think of, Charles, why they keep shifting. You know, Gaddafi has to go. Well, maybe not. Maybe he doesn't have to go. Maybe we'll nation build here. We'll create a democracy. Well, then maybe not. Winning, isn't that, if you are going to be engaged in a military effort, shouldn't that be the main goal?
Well, that's why I think it's all about structure and appearances, and that is paramount. That's why it's such a detached Ivy League approach. Look, what the administration has said is that the U.S. objective is that Gaddafi has to go. And that's the logical objective, because as long as he's in power, you're going to have a threat to the population. You're going to have a divided country. You're going to have an ongoing civil war. And what are we going to do? Stay around for 12 years protecting the population as we did over Iraq after the first Gulf War? So that is the reasonable objective. The problem is this. Because he wanted the cover of so-called international legitimacy, he had to get a UN resolution, and that was watered down. So that only authorizes protection of the population. It's not about ejecting or destroying the Gaddafi regime. Well, so he is now constrained by what the UN allows him to do, even though it's in our national interest to go ahead and to try to get rid of Gaddafi one way or the other.